Justice on the Vatican's highest court, who is here to participate in the march tomorrow, and Marc Thiessen, co-host of the American Enterprise Institute's What the Hell is Going On, excuse me, Cardinal, podcast, and Fox News contributor. Marc, okay.
I didn't want the Cardinal to know that was the name of the podcast.
But, here we are. Your Eminence, thank you very much. It's wonderful to have you here. What do you think about the president being the first one to actually attend the march tomorrow?
Well, I think it's wonderful news. There couldn't be anything more important for our nation than to restore the respect for human life, and that the president himself will now give witness to this is really it's a wonderful moment.
So this is a quote from the National Catholic Reporter about, and we've seen a similar thing from the Christian evangelical community, where they're criticized for aligning themselves with President Trump, even though he's sort of given them, so many issue-oriented things that they have been wanting for a long time. So this reporter, Michael Sean Winters, says, "I question the moral integrity and political efficacy of the mainstream pro-life movement for a simple reason. By lashing themselves to President Donald Trump, they have morally and indelibly compromised their cause." What would you say to that, Your Eminence?
The question is the truth that's being defended, namely the inviolability of human life, and that the president happens to agree that procured abortion is an attack on innocent and defenseless human life. And he agrees with those of us who are working and fighting to restore the respect for the dignity of human life. It's not a political issue. It's a question of agreeing about a fundamental truth. And the fact that I can praise the president for this doesn't mean that I praise him for everything else that he says and does. And so this is making a political issue out of something that's a fundamentally immoral issue.
What about the fact that in the past he had said that he was pro-choice?
I have to presume that he's had a change of heart, that he's had some conversion with regard to this, and I mean, I can only take him at his word what he's saying today. And
Marc Thiessen, let me bring you into this for a moment. You worked for President Bush.
Yep.
Prior presidents have chosen, even pro-life presidents have chosen not to be part of the march.
Yeah.
Why was that, and why do you think President Trump has taken another route?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to overstate how important this decision is by the president. Ronald Reagan didn't go. George H.W. Bush didn't go. My old boss, George W. Bush, didn't go. Many people urged them to go, and they didn't. And I don't know what the reason is, but it sent a message. The failure, doing this it was so strange. You're calling into a rally that literally you can see out of your Oval Office window practically. And it sent a message to pro-life conservatives and pro-life Republicans that they're really the black sheep of the Republican Party, that they're needed because of their votes, they're tolerated. But the prevailing attitude was like, there are those people talking about abortion again. It makes everyone so uncomfortable. And that was the establishment view. The great thing about Donald Trump is Donald Trump doesn't care what the establishment thinks. He came in to disrupt the establishment. And so he has not only been the most pro-life president in American history in terms of the policies that he's done, putting people in the court, but he's been unabashed, without shame or hesitation, embraced pro-life conservatives and made them not just an appendage to his coalition, but one of the centers of his coalition. And that's why when they look at some of these other things, they put them in the context.
Cardinal, you've spoken out about Joe Biden, who's running for the Democratic nomination, Catholic, that he shouldn't receive communion because he is pro-choice, and has said that privately he believes that abortion is wrong, but that he stands by Roe v. Wade. What do you say about that decision?
Well, no devout Catholic, no practicing Catholic can be in favor of abortion, could justify voting for legislation, policies that promote abortion, and he has a consistent record of being pro-abortion. And this isn't a question of a confessional belief. This has to do with the natural law. The first precept of the natural law is the defense of human life. And so you can't say, well, privately, I think it's wrong. I imagine he means by that as a Catholic he thinks it's wrong, but then in his public life that he can act as if it's not moral evil. It's one of the greatest moral evils. So for that reason,
Before I run out of time, I do want to ask you a quick question about Pope Francis suggesting that perhaps in the Amazon region it would be okay for priests to marry because it's so difficult for priests to get to that remote area, trying to encourage people to be able to go to Mass. What do you say to that?
I had a conversation in June of 2017 with a bishop in Brazil. I was in Brazil with a bishop who had been a bishop in the Amazon region for 14 years. And he told me, he said, the people in the Amazon are human beings like the rest of us. If you teach them the truths of the faith, you explain to them why priests should be celibate, he said they embrace it. And he told me he didn't have any problem with vocations. I think this issue of the Amazon region is being used by other parts of the world, in the Western world, who want to take away from the priesthood an essential part of it, namely perfect continence, the celibacy. Yes, there have been married priests in the church, but the church has always understood that the priesthood in its most perfect expression is celibate, even as Christ himself chose to remain celibate as the high priest, the priest of all priests.
Cardinal Burke, thank you. Very good to see you tonight. I hope it's a very successful march tomorrow and it's not too cold for you out there. Marc Thiessen, always a pleasure to have you. Your Eminence, thank you very much. Great to have you here. More of the story coming up next.